All right, what is going on, everyone? Thanks for coming back. This is a knife that I have had for too long, and it belongs to Chris at the Thai Addiction YouTube channel and Thai Addiction Instagram. And I will put links to his channel down below. This is the Glen R. Hovin Foniks, and it is amazing. And it's got fingerprints all over the zirconium because that is just what zirconium bolsters do. That is one reason I really like zirconium. However, I don't love that aspect of it. And I have several knives with zirconium bolsters. Several of my Red Horse Knife Works Hellraisers have them, and they are very much fingerprint smudge magnets. However, other than that, it's pretty awesome. And I love zirconium, so I overlook that aspect. It's just part of the price of admission, if you will. Now, I'm going to go through some of the specs here, some of the details, and kind of just give you my thoughts on this, because this is a high-end custom. Comes from Glen R. Hovin out in Norway. And it's a beautiful, stunning knife that may or may not exactly be my taste. There's some things about it that, for me personally, it's not my style. Okay? Now, if you watch Jim Skelton at all, he did a video on this knife, as well as the link, a smaller, not a smaller version of this knife, but a smaller knife also from Glen R. Hovin. I am not going to do a video on that because it has a bit of a problem. It needs some repair, and I didn't want to show a video of it in its slight repair state it needs. It was a problem with the pivot, so I'm not going to show that one. But we are going to talk about this Foniks, and we can't talk about the Foniks without talking about the Archangel from Todd Fisher Sr. This was the first Fisher knife that I owned, and one of the first kind of high-end customs that I owned. Really, I mean, if I kind of really go back in time and think about it, I had a lot of Medfords at the time, and I had some other stuff, but when Tristan, my good friend, reached out and said he had this for sale, maybe I saw it online on Facebook for sale, and I reached out to him. I don't remember. It was one of my most expensive knives at that time. So now it's not anywhere close to my most expensive. Oh boy, how we evolve. So there's a lot of similarities here. They are totally different knives. However, when Glen R. Hovin was just starting out, maybe 10 years ago, you probably saw Jim Skelton's video, so you probably know the story. So I'm only going to touch on a few pieces. And because Jim's a good friend of mine and he deserves some more views, I will link his video up in the corner somewhere if I can, or at least down in the description. So go check it out. He goes into way more details and has more of a personal story because he is actually good friends with Glen R. Hovin and good friends with Todd Fisher Sr., and good friends with Stan Wilson. So the three of them got together and really helped Glen R. Hovin. So I guess really the four of them were all together and really helped Glen when he was just starting out. So you see some similarities here with the double bolsters, kind of this swooping style, the shape and placement of the pocket clip. Again, very similar design cues from Todd Fisher Sr., which also has some takes from the Stan Wilson non-flipper flipper, kind of in that bolster shape and things like that. So it's a great community, very small community of custom knife makers. I mean, there's a lot of them, but it's a very small, tight-knit group that is super helpful and shares a lot of secrets and ideas and processes and do's and don'ts and tips and tricks, if you will. So Glenn took a lot of that and was able to build knives in a similar fashion. And he's become very good friends with Stan Wilson and Todd Fisher Sr. So anyway, back to the Foniks. Close length, you're at 4 7/8. Overall, you're at 8 1/4. 3.4-inch blade with a 2.97-inch cutting edge. Love the recurve. Beautiful Damas steel that's really deep etched. So there's a lot of texture here. It's really nice. Super cool, super clean. Weighs in at 7.8 ounces. So it's not a small knife by any means, and it's not a lightweight knife either. Runs on bearings. Overall thickness, it really tapers from 0.661 on down, and it's hard to get a final measurement because the pocket clip's in the way. But it does taper in this dimension, and it tapers in this dimension. It's all of that tapering that I don't necessarily love. It fits okay in my hand, but it's just a little, because it slims way down here at the butt end, to me, it's just a little bit odd, okay? Big, thick blade, big, tall blade, it kind of slims down. I mean, it's a great looking knife, but it's not a knife that I would necessarily want to own because of those things I just mentioned, okay? The action on it is super great. The detent is maybe a little bit stronger than I would like. I don't know. The detent works really well. One cool feature, and let's just zoom in here. So we got the zirconium double bolsters front and back. Zirconium pocket clip that is kind of floating. If you can see in here, it's really held up by really just one little standoff here in the center. So it's kind of floating in the backside, floating in the front, and it's kind of set back in the middle. So it kind of appears to be floating on all the sides, which I think is super, super cool. Timascus backspacer, fat carbon winter storm pattern, and then that beautiful Damas steel that just came out great. Now, a lot of people don't etch it that deep, so there's not texture like this Red Horse Knife Works I have. There's no texture here. There's a little texture from some tape residue because I used this to open a box the other day, but it's smooth. I kind of like the in-between. I like a little bit of texture like this. It just gives it a little more style in my book. But I mean, this thing is just gorgeous. And it works really well. It's got jeweling on the inside, which again is something that Stan Wilson and Todd Fisher do. And a lot of makers are doing that inside now. Titanium liners. Just executed really well. Like, how can you go wrong with that type of lineage? A little bit of thought from, oh boy, excuse me. A little thought from Todd Sr., Stan Wilson, Jim Skelton, and then Glenn putting his own twist on everything. I really do think that we are kind of the sum of all of our parts. I've been in the same field of work for about 30 years, doing similar things and kind of working my way up the ladder. But I am who I am today because of the people I worked for previously. What I learned from them, how they mentored me, the physical work that I did, the projects that I worked on, has all kind of culminated into who I am today and how I do my job today. And I'm going to take what I'm learning at this job onto future jobs, should there ever be any. I would love to just stay where I am the rest of my career, quite frankly. But Glenn did the same thing. So he took bits and pieces from Jim and Frank and Stan and others. A lot of trial and error, a lot of years of building to come up with his style. And I think it's totally fair to have some influences from other styles. Like in my job, people know that I worked for this guy because my work is very similar to his in certain aspects. And I'll run into new people that I meet, and they're like, hey, did you ever work for so-and-so? I'm like, yeah, I was there for, 14 years. They're like, oh, I could tell because he does this way also, things like that. So I think it's cool. I love it. And I think as we collect, I think we also kind of collect things similar to what the people around us collect, right? If I didn't know anybody that owned a Frank Fisher Battle or a Todd Senior Archangel, I probably wouldn't have one. If I wasn't friends with Jim Skelton and I had never seen this on his channel, this exact one, I wouldn't have owned it. And I certainly, damn it, Jim, would not have bought my very first Hellraiser in the middle of Jim's video, paused, and then watched the rest. So yeah, I think we're all influenced by our surroundings, and I have no problem with that. I think that's really what makes us who we are. So there you go. A quick kind of look, review, whatnot of this amazing knife. Now, I'm going to get these both shipped back out to Chris. I know Jim had them for like a month. I've had them for a month. Chris hasn't seen these in a freaking day. Like, he hadn't seen these in a long time, months. And so I'm thankful for him. So go please check him out on Instagram. Love to get him some more followers and whatnot. And there you go. We'll leave it at that. Have yourselves a fantastic day. And if the link, the smaller version, does get fixed and whatnot, maybe it'll come back to me and I'll film. You can check it out on Jim's channel over there in the corner or down in the description anyway. So, and it is for sale once it gets all polished up. Reach out to Tie Addiction if you're interested in that one. But you'll have to go see that on Jim's video. Cool. Thanks, guys.